Hey, what up, guys? If you are here because of my channel is one that we have spent a lot of time reacting to Norm Macdonald, we're switching it up today, or comedy, or whatever it may be. I've also really appreciated my morning time on my treadmill to learn some stuff and change my mind on things, and I didn't expect to change my mind on issues as far as I have for the past several years. For those of you who know, or those of you who don't know, I'm a Chilean immigrant, became a citizen last year. Spent most of my life not as wealthy as many people want to be, and because of that, I tended to be quite leftist on a lot of my ideals and thoughts. And then I started learning some more, again, checking out people like Thomas Sowell and stuff, and it's been really helping me out. So we're going to check out some more. My wife recommended I watch this because she enjoyed it, so here we go, man. We're going to check out the best of Thomas Sowell 2020. So some of this stuff might be repeated from other videos we have checked out on the channel, but hey, whatever. Links down below in the description for where to find me on social media, supplements I use, where to donate, all of that jazz. And please like and share this video so more people can be exposed to Thomas Sowell. I think there's a really important balance to find in life, and that one of charity, but one of should the government be doing that and enforcing our charity? It's been a good question that's been helping me out. So here we go. Let's check out what Thomas Sowell has to say, and put your thoughts down below, and here we go.
If you can't get equality among people born to the same parents and raised under the same roof, why in the world would you think you're going to get it among people who've had such different histories and cultures around the world?
See, right off the bat, bro.
Thomas, when I had you on right before the election, I asked you what you thought Trump versus Hillary, and you said, well, Hillary is a known disaster, Trump is a risk, you'll take the risk. How do you feel about Trump versus Biden?
Not that different, except I think Biden is a bigger risk than Hillary was.
Because?
Because, first of all, he's not as smart. And I think that the way things are poised, if he comes in and the Democrats take the Senate, I don't see anything getting better in this generation. I also believe that even though the country has weathered many bad things in the past, there is a point of no return, and I suspect that that's where we're going to be taken to. When I see people talking seriously about abolishing the police force, my gosh, I mean, insanity. And, of course, the biggest losers, if they do that, will be the low-income minority communities, where you already have these rising rates of murder as the police withdraw. I mean, the police themselves, when they realize that there are politicians who will throw them to the wolves rather than confront loudmouths, they pull back. They're not going to go out there and risk their lives needlessly, knowing that the politicians will turn against them if there's any problem.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity.
Oh, we reacted to this in the...
Equality suggests...
This video scared me,
everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting out from the same place. So if we're all getting the same amount, but you started out back there and I started out over here, we could get the same amount, but you're still going to be that far back behind me.
Well, this is one of many number of one-factor explanations as to why everyone doesn't have the same outcome. 100 years ago, it was genetics. At other times and places, it was exploitation. But again, these are ideas that sound plausible. But when you do research, you discover that everywhere you turn, there are 1,000 reasons why people don't turn out the same. It goes right down to the family. In the first chapter of this book,
from the beginning, I
point out that the firstborn has higher IQs than his siblings. And in later life has more achievements. Among astronauts, for example, of the 29 astronauts in the Apollo program that put a man on the moon, 22 were either the firstborn or an only child. Now, if you can't get equality among people born to the same parents and raised under the same roof, why in the world would you think you're going to get it among people who've had such different histories and cultures around the world?
Let me ask you a couple questions. You
think we watched this on
judicial
Channel 2.
activism, doctor, has hurt blacks. Judicial activism of eliminating restrictive covenants in deeds, eliminating segregation in schools, one man, one vote, literacy test. Do you consider those judicially active?
Well, as regards restrictive covenants, I can see no evidence that they did anything other than make some people feel good because it was symbolic. As regards desegregation of the school system, that should have been done long before.
Sorry, I'm pausing. That right there, I think, is a call out for a lot of things, huh? Like a lot of people, we're just doing things because it feels good to do it, or at least the perception of me. Right? If I drop the most socially accepted woke thing I can on Instagram, it gets more likes and people praise me for my bravery, right? So it's like that point he's making. What's crazy? What is that, from the 80s, 90s? Sorry, I don't know. I'm ignorant. Man, that's just human nature. And it's like, with social media, we've like multiplied that, man. We all just say, and we start saying stupid things just because we're chasing the perception of being seen as incredibly tolerant and virtuous. And sorry.
More sound based.
The way he says things, I suppose, started getting to me, man. And his books are the same. They're such easy reads, oddly enough.
I've gone into this at great length in previous writings.
But are
the
they?
Problem with, no. You see, the problem is not whether you believe that school desegregation should have ended. I believe it should have ended long before. Okay. George Bork believes it should have ended long before. What he and what I have objected to are the principles used in that decision, because those principles take on a life of their own, and they come back to haunt you in other areas. Obviously, this old phrase, hard cases make bad law, derived from that fact. You dream up a principle to reach this result, and then the principle has a life of its own.
George Floyd's story has been the story of black folks, because ever since 401 years ago, the reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed to be in is you kept your knee on our neck.
All the incentives politically are for black leaders to blame all problems in the black community on the larger society. And that enables them to take on the role of being the defender of the black community against enemies, which in turn creates the situation in which many blacks don't feel that anything that they do is going to help themselves unless it's done politically as a group. That there's no point. I mean, why would you, if you believe what they say, why would you want to knock yourself out in the school knowing that the man is not going to let you get anywhere?
So when you combine all of those things, I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people.
You see, you can't have a welfare state in a democratic country unless you first have a welfare state vision. The vision of grievances, victimology, and resentments. The idea that the world owes you something.
I haven't been able to find a single country in the world where the policies that are being advocated for blacks in the United States have lifted any people out of poverty. I've seen many examples around the world of people who began in poverty and ended in affluence. Not one of them has followed any pattern at all like what is being advocated for blacks in the United States. Many groups have remained in poverty for a very long time trying to follow those patterns.
By the way, the California legislature, I don't know whether, I can't sort out whether it's actual legislation or it was a resolution, non-binding resolution. In any event, something moved in the California legislature calling for formal reparations to African Americans. How do you respond to that?
One, I know and they know it's not going to happen. So what we're looking at is someone who wants votes or followers, and that this will get them votes or get them followers and finances. But it's not, all it will do is simply tear the country apart.
The fatal misstep of intellectuals is assuming that superior ability within a particular realm can be generalized to superior wisdom or morality overall. Chess grandmasters, musical prodigies, and others who are as remarkable within their respective specialties as intellectuals within theirs seldom make that mistake. Noam Chomsky, whom you write about in Intellectuals in Society, whose work in linguistics, in the first place I can't understand it, but as best I can tell,
Everyone who
regarded.
exactly. Everyone who understands his technical work within the field, within his discipline of linguistics, considers him one of the great figures of the 20th century. And his work in politics?
Absurdity. The same could be said of Bertrand Russell and his landmark works on mathematics and other people in other fields, but they step outside their fields. And when you step outside your level of specialty, sometimes that's like stepping off a cliff.
And why is it that intellectuals, that is to say people whose end product is ideas, should succumb to that temptation more than, to use your example, a chess grandmaster?
Because a chess grandmaster can be world famous for doing absolutely nothing more than winning chess tournaments and making displays, as many of them do, of playing 5 chess games simultaneously while blindfolded.
But intellectuals, what? They languish in obscurity, no matter how smart.
Well, the whole question of when is someone well known or not came up during the visit of Jim Flynn from New Zealand here a few years ago. He's one of the world's authorities on IQ tests. People, in India know about Jim Flynn. People in England, he made a world tour. But I doubt if the people in the next block from where he lives know who he is. If Noam Chomsky had just kept on stating in linguistics, neither of us probably would have ever heard of Noam Chomsky. He would have been just as famous around the world among linguists, but nobody else would have heard of him.
There has probably never been an era in history when intellectuals have played a larger role in society than the era in which we live. Close.
And it also makes me think there's probably never been a time in society where so many people wanted to be seen as an intellectual. When, like, I think of, again, if you're a blogger watching this, I'm not trying to offend you, but the reason you blog is because you want to be perceived as an intellectual. The reason, that I'm watching this, like, this is a good call for me. Like, I need to be careful. Like, I want this channel for us to be like eternal students, right? But I can be very susceptible to that too. So, thought that goes through my mind there.
Quote, how come?
Well, for one thing, for most of history, you had autocratic governments. You had kings, you had emperors, and so on. And what the people thought didn't matter an awful lot. In a democracy, what the people think matters a lot. And also in later times, you have a more prosperous society where we can afford, from a financial point of view, to send more and more people through colleges and universities and support books and things like that, much more so than in the past. And now you have people out there who fundamentally don't really know much beyond what their specialty might be, creating a certain vision of life in the electorate, which the people with the holders of power have to take into account.
So the intellectuals are able to dominate, perhaps is the word, the climate of opinion in a republic of 300 million people.
Yes.
What's the transmission
and there's opinions everywhere now
from intellectual opinion to the larger climate of opinion? This is where the media comes in.
Oh, there are many. Oh, right. There are many transmission belts. I mean, the schools, all from the elementary school right
up. They
had
no idea what was coming.
Graduate schools, the media,
Twitter and Facebook and crap.
Now increasingly, the churches. Even churches that we think of as conservative are out there pushing the liberal agenda.
So you're saying that anyone who believes in equality, whether you call them feminists, call them whatever you want to call them.
I'm sure if you haven't seen that interview, I highly recommend it. But this is probably one of the most important interviews that started making me question things that I was believing as a kid that made me mad.
Should basically give up because it ain't going to happen. Because a lot of people listening to you will just say, I mean, are we going back to the dark ages?
That's because they're actually not listening. They're
I'm
just
listening very
projecting
carefully, and I'm
think.
hearing you basically saying women need to just accept they're never going to make it on equal terms, equal outcomes is how you defined it. But you're going to put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's fine. You're saying that's fine.
I'm quoting you to yourself, Tom. Quote, it is widely believed that the rise of American women in high-level occupations since the 1960s has been due to anti-discrimination laws, and that these in turn have been due to the feminist movement. In reality, the proportion of women in high-level occupations was greater during the first decades of the 20th century than in the middle of the 20th century,
And all of this was before the feminist movement. Explain.
Yes, in the first half of the 20th century, for example, in 1908, the percentage of women in Who's Who in America was twice what it was in 1950. And various fields, if you look at the women who got PhDs in economics, chemistry, who got law degrees, other postgraduate degrees, those were all higher in the 20s and 30s than they were in the 50s.
Wow.
Now, the people on the other side say the opposite by the simple expedient of looking as if the world began in 1960. They ignore all the rest of that, and they say it's all due to the feminist movement, to anti-discrimination laws, and so forth.
If you have a problem,
I learned that. Oh, I remember watching that. I remember watching or reading about a story where the most egalitarian countries. So a lot of them, people I talk to here love to rave about like the Nordic countries and about how egalitarian they are. But I studied that the more egalitarian their laws became, like how much they were pushing equality of outcome, for some reason, differences in like that they were trying to close, like how many women were going into nursing versus, again, we might get into those stereotypical like jobs there, but that those differences, like even that they grew even bigger. Like even more women went into nursing after trying to implement rules to push more women, hopefully, into STEM fields. Even though nursing is kind of STEM, but you know what I mean. So really interesting.
problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Black people have never supported, for example, affirmative action, quotas, anything of that sort. Wherever polls have been taking a black opinion on such matters of should people be paid equally or should there be this or that, black people have never taken a position that you described. So it is not a question of what black people chose to do. It's what you choose to put in the mouths of black people. It is what you choose to project. It is not what any black people have ever said anywhere that you can put your finger on.
It's what you choose to put into the mouth of the pollsters, as far as I can see. Look at the leadership of the black community.
Like most people, I have never seen a pollster.
If you look at the leadership of the black...
I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
We're raising whole generations who regard facts as more or less optional. And they're being taught that it's important to have views, and they're not being taught that it's important to know what you're talking about. It's important to hear the opposite viewpoint, and more important, to learn how to distinguish why viewpoint A and viewpoint B are different and which one has the most evidence or logic behind it. They disregard that. They hear something and they...
What happened? Dang it. I'm gonna have to compile some Thomas Sowell videos for this channel's sake. Oh, well, I really enjoyed listening to him. I tried to play devil's advocate with it, though, because I have to admit that part of maybe why I enjoy this point of view now, it's, man, I don't know. Regardless, highly recommend reading his stuff. And let's see. Let's see if we can just, as a generation, because it's my generation with those younger than us as well, that are, I don't know. I think a lot about this line, and we'll close with this. In The Dark Knight Rises, Alfred says, maybe it's time we stop running from the truth and let the truth have its day. I have ideals for my life and for humanity too, but we can't forget that there is also facts about things that are really going on. If we distort our opinion of the world, we can do a lot of harm. And we were supposed to learn that in the 20th century. So we'll see. If you have suggestions of some stuff for me to watch, by the way, send it my way, man. Would really appreciate it. I have no idea if anybody enjoyed watching this little awkward ending here, but hey, man, it's what we do. Hit like, subscribe, all that crap. Peace out.